Hello everyone, and welcome to this deep dive into the cults of Silent Hill F. Throughout my life, I've been one to investigate and seek out that which is hidden from sight, and the Silent Hill franchise has always been regarded the one title shrouded in just the right amount of mystery and puzzles that I craved. So it comes as no surprise that among the interpretive communities of Silent Hill fandom, Silent Hill F has generated the same mixture of metaphysical curiosity and interpretive fervor that once surrounded original titles in the franchise. When we step back from Hinako's experience and turn our focus away from the social narratives spun for us as standard drama, we can see a broader social dynamic. The youths of Ebisugaoka seem as though they're typical teenagers, doing typical teenage things, but their relationships are anything but typical. We can see this bear out right away during the first scene between Hinako and her peers. Her conversation with Shu is barely uttered.
お前こそ何か言うことはないのかよ。
相棒にないんだったら私にだってない。
お前らしいや。受け身な生き方なんてお前らしくないぜ。お前が自分で選んだ道なら俺はいつまでも応援するからな。
What we can glean from this is that Hinako is in the midst of a major life decision that Shu and seemingly everyone knows about.
シュウ君、お待たせ。ひなこもいたんだ。リンコ。何の話をしてたの？いや、大した話は。誰かとおしゃべりしたい気持ちだったんだって。
This conversation is contextual and wouldn't be uttered for any other reason. When Rinko shows up, it's plain to see how brazenly she shows her jealousy. But another subtle interaction is when Sakuko appears from behind the corner with her bicycle. She doesn't even try to hide the fact that she was eavesdropping. There are no secrets in Ebisugaoka. What's more, the duo speak to Hinako in sarcastic faux reverence. Both girls curtsy to Hinako in a knowing jab. This absolutely is an inside joke to which everyone present understands, but to understand the context behind it, we need to unpack just what is happening in the town of Ebisugaoka. The town's social structure is revealed to operate under shake seido, or hereditary family lineages, with backgrounds in religious cults. And to be clear, this system is not made explicit by the game. We have to discern this through the evidence. Again, Hinako's account of things gets in the way of this. She dissociates from the fact that she herself is a descendant from a line of shake seido. This is known during the so-called true ending, when the Shichibi fox god states,
稀に人里に真意を宿した希少な血を持つ女子が生まれることがそのようなものが里に現れるたびに我らは一族の跡取りにそのものを嫁に欲するようまじないをかけた。
Right here we see Hinako is such an extraordinary girl blessed with divine power. In this context of Japanese occult, this is only possible through inheriting a certain blood type. blood type is actually a prevalent social construct in Japan. Ketsueki gata uranai, or blood type fortune telling, began as a modern superstition during the 1920s and made a major comeback in post-war Showa Japan in the 1950s. Among other mysteries, occult practices, and traditions, blood type enters the mix because it's well at home here in Ebisugaoka. Inaka, or countryside towns, lend themselves to these folk beliefs and gullibilities, somewhat ironically. I say this because such locations make a virtue of rejecting new concepts. But that is unless these concepts somehow mesh with the already superstition-laden town network. Such superstitions play on the baser nature of in-group thinking people, because they help to further categorize those who are of the in-group and the out-group, and qualities, such as blood types, are hidden from others until they're made known. This perfectly lends itself to this quality of feeling special or particularly clever for presuming to know a secret, a quality often seen in regressive populations. Clear examples would be cult communities and among conspiracy theorists. Under Ebisugaoka's Shake Seido, surnames are not mere labels, but living job descriptions. They tell you which shrine house a family belongs to, what rites they perform, and how their children are positioned in the town's ritual economy. Silent Hill F stages this plainly. Families split into two ritual axes, Ebisu, or Tsukumogami, and Inari, and the town's social life is guided by this bifurcation. Inari-aligned households are betrayed by names that involve nobility, agriculture, or foxes directly. Ebisu-aligned households are known for names that allude to water sources. That structural opposition is the clearest lens through which the game places its youths in a cult town rather than treating their behavior as merely private adolescent drama. From this standpoint, I've analyzed each cast member's names and deduced where they are positioned in this fray. Shimizu Hinako is presented by name and through the events of the game as belonging to the Ebisu lineage. Shimizu literally means deep water, shows that her lineage is that of old Ebisu devotees. Her father, Kanta, being a fisherman and cook himself, directly ties her to the lineage. No matter how much she hates it, Hinako is actually more like her sister than we thought. She was also born of a so-called unlucky age and destined for sacrifice to the Inari cult. As this, I suspect, was the arrangement made between Inari and Ebisu at some juncture of ceasefire. This is called Seiryaku Keikon, a status-based arranged marriage for political or ritual purposes. Hinako's given name, which means little doll or Hina child, ties her to doll imagery and household offerings. The game repeatedly stages Hinako in ritualized positions opposite other key figures, and those staged oppositions function as more than mere metaphor. They are the visible markings of a hereditary role. Her social isolation, the way classmates look at her, and the repeated object motifs clustered around her body make it plain that Hinako has been at the epicenter of social manipulation. A major clue that she is one to be sacrificed is the paternal Kokeshi doll surrounded by hundreds of smaller dolls. Throughout the game, dolls, including Kokeshi, are all standing upright, almost without exception. But when we reach this location, the father doll, no doubt representing Kanta, and all the child dolls are lying down. The father doll is damaged, but watches with its eye of expectation. Hinako immediately wants to leave the room, as it serves as a reminder of the role she is expected to play through her lineage. I must point out that the origin of Kokeshi dolls is they served as substitutes for unwanted babies killed after birth, and the characters can be understood as being made up of ko, which means child, and keshi, which means erasing or extinguishing. And this perfectly aligns the Shimizu family household as one that renders its own children as something like Tsukumogami, discarded objects that will haunt them. Iwai's shoe fits into the Ebisu lineage as well, for many reasons. The surname Iwai literally means rock well, and no, I don't mean this rock well.
Like I'm in the twilight zone and I always feel like somebody's watching me.
His given name, which is Shu, means cultivation, ritual discipline, and this marks him as the trained implement or attendant. Shu's family is that of physicians and herbologists. They're knowledgeable about traditional Chinese medicine, Omyodo, and have a garden of white peonies that we find out are actually Hakokuso, thought to have been native to the region, but a letter later reveals they arrived in Japan via a Western Bateren, or Christian missionary, in 1776. Shu uses products from the plants to help Hinako with her stress, and I put help there in quotes. But given the prevalence of so many of the peonies, we in the know understand to be white Claudia, and given we see the same pills Shu produces littered around town, including in other people's homes, I'm more than certain the drug was being consumed by other people, not just Hinako. I think the Iwai family and the Shimizu family go way back, but it's the other families in town that wedge them apart. We might say they're the Inari households. Using onomastic clues, we can see the surnames linked to Inari quite easily. Let's start with Igarashi Sakuko. The name Igarashi signals a lineage historically aligned with Inari worship and imperial agrarian authority, by tracing its mythic origin to a prince of Emperor Suinin, who opened new farmland, precisely the kind of foundational act associated with Inari's guardianship of rice and prosperity. Other traditional readings of the name, whether invoking 5 winds and 10 rains as a blessing for stable harvest weather, or referencing Ainu terms for a vantage point overlooking clear mountain streams, all point toward communities bound to fields, seasons, and sacred water sources. In Silent Hill F, these associations place Igarashi Sakuko firmly within an Inari bloodline, a family meant to mediate fertility, blessings, and cultivation. Hinako mentions her family maintained the Senensugi shrine. I'll have much more to say about this later, but more importantly, Sakuko herself is a Miko, and this puts her in a direct position of lineage and duty. Her tragedy, then, is not simply personal, but cosmological. A child born to be a Miko of a prestigious agricultural line, yet misunderstood and marginalized. Her autism somewhat interpreted as spiritual failure, rather than the intuitive sensitivity her lineage once valued. Her given name, Sakuko, literally means bloom and child. Sadly, she met her end in the fog world by being the one to have Higanbana literally bloom through her body. As the boss, she wields a kanabo, a two-handed war club that she uses like a kagura suzu. The kagura suzu odori is a dance that Miko priestesses famously perform in Japan, but their male counterpart, Geiki, can do this too. Here's a Geiki performing one kagura suzu odori with a kitsune mask. And here is a clip of a Miko performing Kagura Suzu Odori. Sakuko is released from her unfortunate incarnation by the Fox Mask himself, but we find out later that banishment leads to her being trapped in the dark shrine to be used as a rite of sacrifice by Hinako. This takes us to Nishida Rinko. Her surname, which means West Rice Field, puts her in an Inari lineage because Inari oversees agriculture, fertility, domestic protection, needlework, textiles, fox spirit mediation, and rites of sustenance and prosperity. As As Rinko's given name means the terms cold and dignified, coupled with child, her name suggests her parents intended for her to be dignified and to lead others. Actually, Rinko does wind up being class leader, and she is also a kanushi, or Shinto priest, during her boss fight. She orders so-called puppets about to attack Hinako, and she uses a flaming onusa like a whip in the way of a slave driver. This incarnation is a certain projection of her inner being. Though she burns to ash in this bout, she is serving a ritual purpose for the sake of Inari, in the end being the one who is puppeteered, needing to be told like Saruman.
There is only one Lord of the Ring, and he does not share power.
Tsuneki Kotoyuki, the most obvious legatee of the Inari cult lineage. In fact, it's the most documented and demonstrated in the game. Kotoyuki's given name is itself a code, pointing to his parentage and the expectations placed upon the Tsuneki heir. According to his mother's in-game letter, one character was taken from each parent. The Kotobuki, which means auspicious longevity or ritual blessing, comes from his father's name, Hidetoshi, while Yuki, or fortune, or favored fate, is taken from his mother's name, Sachie. This is more than sentimental naming. In shrine lineage families, selecting kanji from both bloodlines is a classical way to signify the joining of houses and the intended continuity of sacred obligation. By giving their son this name, Kotoyuki's mother was articulating a mandate. Her child would carry the combined authority, purity, and ritual expectation of his ancestral line. His very name is that vow. Yet this all becomes deeply ironic in light of Kotoyuki's childhood trauma and the collapse of his family after surviving a fox attack, an incident the local doctor compares to folkloric kitsunetsuki, which means fox possession. Kotoyuki's personality shifts toward strict discipline and refinement, a pattern associated in Japanese rural folklore with spirit influence or premature ritual maturity. Meanwhile, the rest of the Tsuneki household dies under mysterious circumstances, documented in the medical record and autopsy notes. Sudden organ failure, wasting, and tissue degradation with no pathogen detected. These symptoms align closely with chronic exposure to arsenic and sulfur-rich hot springs, the very waters that Ebisugaoka's dragon myth frames as the venom or breath of an underground deity. The Tsuneki estate's proximity to the sealed ritual grounds beneath which these toxic springs lie makes the family's deaths likely due to environmental poisoning. Seen through this lens, Kotoyuki's departure from the village to be raised as an heir was actually his graduation into the Dark Shrine. Through the time of being a boy and when we next see him, he's with the cult's initiates, who have all disappeared from town, and the Shichibi himself. This is why Kotoyuki speaks in such a familiar way about him. This is not common practice in Japan, unless one truly is familiar. Removed from a dying household whose supposed divine blessing turned to ruin, he is instead funneled into the shadowed obligations of the Dark Shrine, inheriting a spiritually entangled lineage. As for Hinako's sister, Kinuta Junko, we find she has been inducted into the Inari cult. She is a foreshadow into Hinako's fate. Her married surname, Kinuta, literally combines Kinu, which is silk, with ta, or field, marking the Kinuta as a family tied to both refined production and agriculture, traits shared with the Tsuneki, Igarashi, and Nishida lineages within Ebisugaoka's Shake Seido structure, where native Ebisu line families maintain a fragile balance with the Inari line houses through strategic marriage. Junko's position becomes clear. Born under an unlucky year and selected for the same sacrificial rite that later targets Hinako, she fulfills her clan's obligation in upholding the ceasefire between their patron Kami. Her disappearance from the Shimizu household reflects the completion of this duty, making her a narrative and structural precursor to Hinako within the village's system of inherited ritual responsibility. This brings me back to the terms I mentioned in the video Hinako's Pain, Atotsugi, which means succession, and Hoshi, which means service. Since the Shimizu family descend from a strong line of Ibisu devotees, they are deeply devout and thus deranged by Inari's influence in the town. Their deaths came about not by Hinako's malice, but by Inari's. This is how we make sense of Hinako's reaction when the Shiromuku/fog monster version of herself kills them. The reason her parents are bewitched by the Shiromuku version of Hinako is because they are bewitched by Inari's Kitsune no Bakashi, and how he's able to do this is precisely by warping their sense of Hoshi, which again means service. These details tell us how Shake Seido operates in the town of Ebisugaoka. Each family has a lineage including Hinako's own house, or Shimizu-kei, Sakuko's Igarashi-kei, Shu's Iwai-kei, Junko's assumed Kinuta-kei, and so on. All reflect roles inscribed into the town's cultist hierarchy. Within these households, duties such as Shinji corresponds to Shinto's sacral pillars, Harai, which is purification, Kamitsuge, which is spirit mediation, and Hoshi, which is ritual officiation.